welcome to my channel. My name is Martine, and if you are new here, I do videos on Vedic astrology mainly, but also with some tropical insights, and I focus on both relationship and natal astrology. And if you like this video and you would like to see more content from me, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to my channel. Also consider clicking the notifications bell if you want to see when I will post a new video. Also, if you are interested in a private reading, I do readings in astrology on a variety of topics ranging from relationship readings to career to transits for 2-3 years, or solar return charts or predictions for 1 year, etc. You are free to email me at the email address that I will leave in the video description, and I can send you a pricing list and reading options and any other details that you might require. Also, I want to mention that I have started membership options on this channel, and the short of it, just to give you the short perks that you will get if you choose to join the membership section, you will get 1 extra video per month for each membership stage or tier. So for the first tier, you will get 1 extra video per month. For the second tier, you will get 2 extra videos per month, so you will have access to level 1 and level 2 videos. And for level 3 or third tier, you will get 3 extra videos per month. The level 1 and level 3 videos are going to be on a variety of topics, so basically anything related to astrology, but it will be content that is not shown on my regular usual videos, right? So this is members only exclusive content, and it can range from, tips and tricks on how to read a horoscope to, I haven't done this yet, but I plan on doing maybe members only astrological synastry for famous couples, for instance, or the analysis of famous people's horoscopes, but then I can also get into divisional charts, etc., etc. So all kinds of things. The level 1 or second tier of membership options is especially related to synastry astrology topics, meaning relationship-oriented astrology. So this could be things like how to discover which kind of partner archetype is right for you according to your horoscope, or it could be, again, different characteristics, whether you're going to have a good marriage according to your horoscope or a less than stellar marriage. But you can find more concrete examples in the lists that you will find in the video description, because I have added the playlists where you can already see all the videos that I have posted in each members section. So yeah, you can see what videos you will have access to from the ones that I have already done. But I will continue to post, like I said, 1 extra video per month for each level of membership. And in addition to that, in the members only section, you will have access to members only polls, and you will also have priority when it comes to getting your comments replied to on my channel. And you will also have stickers that basically show up next to your username that show that you are a member, and a couple of exclusive emojis. All right, so that's pretty much all the perks that you can have as a member on my channel. If you're curious, you can check the video description for more details as well, or you can click the join button under any of my videos to also see the prices, because the prices will be shown in your local currency. All right, in addition to the members only section, I also have a tarot channel, and I post there semi-regularly, and I will be linking the tarot channel in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. It's called Martine's Tarot. So if you are curious about tarot, if you're into it, maybe check out my channel, maybe subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening to this intro. And now I'm going to get straight into today's topic. So today's topic is going to be, like I mentioned on my community page, about marrying a wealthy spouse, or more like some indicators of how wealth is activated in the horoscope. I still haven't decided how to name the video. It's going to be a bit complicated, but I'm going to figure it out. In any case, you're going to see what I have to say as I go along, basically. So I'm going to get straight into it. I have made a video before actually talking about all the different configurations that might show wealth after marriage, meaning either an increase in your finances or marrying a wealthy spouse. But I didn't really make a distinction there. I didn't get really specific about indicators that literally show 100% that you're going to marry someone who already is established. And in fact, I did mention in that video that there is, that those indicators tend to show that your wealth is going to increase after marriage. And everything that I said in that video still stays. They're also covering things like connection between houses. Like, for instance, one of the strongest indicators of an increase in your wealth after marriage is if you have a contact between the 11th and the 7th houses in the D1 chart or in the D9 or the Navamsa chart. So for instance, if you have the Lord of the 11th house in the 7th house, or if you have the Lord of the 7th house in the 11th house, these are strong indicators that you're going to have an increase of your wealth after you get married. But it doesn't actually say whether the spouse you're going to marry is going to be wealthy, or if you're somehow going to activate some new opportunities in your lives because of this marriage. And, for instance, you're going to get a better job after you get married, or you might get an idea to write a book or start a business or whatever. Because of your spouse's family or contacts, you might increase your wealth, for instance, right? So there could be multiple indicators. But with respect to seeing, now again, there might be others, and I'm gonna mention them maybe in future videos as I do more research. But for now, I'm giving you the main things that I've seen. And this has to do with Nadi astrology, which is a branch of Vedic astrology that I've only more recently gotten into. I don't really know that much about it, I have to be honest, but this is coming from this branch of astrology in case you want to do more research on it. So it has to do with Venus being seen as the wife archetype in the man's chart, and Jupiter being seen, actually, here's the twist, according to the Nadi branch of astrology, Mars is actually seen as the husband archetype instead of Jupiter. Now, don't ask me why this is. Obviously, if you look at different schools, they have different perspectives. But yeah, if you have, so according to this branch, Mars instead of Jupiter is seen as the husband, and you can see indicators of the kind of husband or the kind of wife you're going to get, and based on these two planets, Venus and Mars, and what aspects they are receiving, what signs they are in, of course, what houses they are in. But with respect to wealth, there are just a few things you want to look at. So for instance, in a man's horoscope, if you see that he has Mercury or Rahu conjunct Venus, to some extent also if he has Jupiter conjunct Venus, and this is very important, and Venus has the lowest degree in this conjunction, right? So this means that, for instance, if the person has Mercury-Venus conjunct, and let's say Venus is in 0 degrees Aries, and Mercury is in 20 degrees Aries, right? So that means that Venus is at a lower degree than Mercury, right? Same for any of the other two planets, or not planet, like Rahu, right? So if, let's say, Venus is in 0 degrees Aries, Rahu is in 20 degrees Aries, or if it's in any other degree that is higher than 0 degrees. Or let's say Venus is in 0 degrees 20 minutes of Aries, and Jupiter is in 0 degree 50 minutes of Aries, then Venus has the lowest degree. So in these situations where you have the conjunction, now bear in mind, I remind you that conjunction according to Vedic astrology means the two planets are in the same sign, and I will also remind you that I use the sidereal zodiac. This is what traditional Vedic astrologers use as opposed to the tropical. The sidereal is based on constellations, all right? So if you have this conjunction and Venus is in the lowest degree, this shows, especially in a man's chart, especially, that his wealth will increase after marriage. And I do specifically say marriage, okay? So I'm not talking about cohabitation or having a girlfriend or anything. It has to be a legal contract, a legal/spiritual contract. I'm not even 100% sure if it would count if it's just a spiritual contract, like if you just marry religiously. It has to be a contract. It has to be a marriage in the traditional sense, you know, two people getting together, binding their lives in front of witnesses and all the whole shebang, you know, like the full package. In this situation, like I said, so in these circumstances, the man's wealth increases after marriage. This is important to take into account, obviously, from multiple points of view. You especially actually see this with Rahu. Often when you see, I've seen this a lot in charts that I have looked at and also famous people's charts. And when you see, especially Venus with Rahu, to a second extent, Venus with Mercury, and to a third extent, Venus with Jupiter, you see an increase in wealth, all right, in the man's chart. Aside from this, if you look at a woman's horoscope with respect to Mars, all right, if you have Jupiter conjunct Mars, and Jupiter is, again, in a higher degree than Mars, so again, let's say you have Mars in, let's say 2 degrees Gemini, Jupiter is in 10 degrees Gemini, right? So this means Jupiter is at a higher degree, Mars is at a lower degree. And remember, according to this branch, Mars is the husband archetype. So Jupiter is one of the planets that is linked to wealth and opportunity and, you know, everything positive, basically. Jupiter is like the great benevolent planet in Vedic astrology, in all forms of astrology as far as I've read. So Jupiter will show that the woman who has this placement will see that her husband's wealth increases after marriage. So again, if you marry a man who, let's say, I don't know, whatever the situation may be, let's say you marry a guy who makes, I don't know, 50,000 euros a year. If you marry him, he could be making 100,000 euros within a year or something. He might get some kind of opportunity, some promotion after you get married, right? If you have Jupiter before Mars, so again, let's say Jupiter is in 2 degrees Gemini and Mars is in 10 degrees Gemini, then you will marry a man who most likely is already established. All right. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean that the person is going to be filthy rich, but it does tend to show someone, like I said, who is established. Okay. So not someone who is struggling and, you know, still hasn't really reached a position of security, but rather someone who is actually, you know, has a certain position, has a certain level of seniority within his career, let's say, or his line of work, right? And it can also literally show a wealthy spouse, like someone who's really wealthy. Of course, as usual, you will have to also look at the full horoscope because these are just some singular configurations, right? So if you take them out of context, it's difficult to see the full picture. But these are general interpretations, all right? So these are the general themes of these aspects. And to some extent, when it comes to women's horoscope, you especially see that wealth is connected to Jupiter, right? So Mars with Jupiter in a conjunction tends to show wealth. To a lesser extent, also, if you have Jupiter in a trine from Mars, you might see an increase, either an increase of wealth or, again, a theme of marrying someone who's wealthy, but it's difficult to tell if it's going to be, you marrying a person who is already wealthy versus someone who might have an increase in wealth after you get married, right? So it's difficult to see that. And by trine, I'm talking about the trikona concept in Vedic astrology, which is kind of like the trine, basically. So basically that means that, let's say if you have Mars in Cancer, the trine positions would be Scorpio and Pisces, right? So if you have Jupiter in Scorpio or Pisces, then you can say that Jupiter is trining Mars energetically, or is in a trikona with respect to Mars. A trikona house, which means the first, the fifth, the ninth houses. And in these situations, again, the spouse could have some Jupiterian qualities. Aside from the wealth situation, Jupiterian qualities also means things like this could be a good teacher, someone who is wise, well-educated, benevolent, tolerant, optimistic, also potentially driven by faith, has a higher mind somehow, can also, like I said, could be well-educated. And is some kind of a guru or manager or something like that, all right? Manager, and not always a guru or a manager, but someone who imparts knowledge, right? Someone who, like I said, kind of like a teacher. Some situations can even be a guru or a manager, but again, you would have to look at the full picture to see more details. And also, to some extent, also when you see, let's say, a little bit of Mars and Mercury, you might see the similar situation with women. But with women, you mainly want to look for Jupiter, whereas with men, you mainly want to look for Rahu. And again, conjunctions to Mars or Venus, respectively, depending on gender. Now, again, I wouldn't know what to say with respect to the LGBTQ community on this situation, but again, I would stick to the general guidelines with respect to this aspect. Meaning, if you're a woman, even if you're gay, I would still look at Mars. And you might want to also try with Venus, okay, to some extent, depending. If you're attracted to, feminine women, then you might also want to check Venus. But otherwise, stick with Mars. And again, if you're a gay man, I would also stick with Venus, especially if you identify as more feminine. If you identify as more masculine. Yeah. So these have been like the general theories. This is pretty much what I have to tell you. It's very simple, very to the point. And now I want to check a few examples of famous people. Some that I have found that are really relevant. So first of all, let's start with the ladies, women first, right? So first of all, I've looked at Angelina Jolie's chart. So she has Moon, Mars, and Jupiter conjunct together. Another thing that I will say is that right now that I'm on this topic is that when you have conjunctions to Mars and trines to Mars, according to this system, it also shows the qualities of the spouse. And it also tends to show, especially in the case of conjunctions, again, looking by degree, it shows what qualities the spouse is going to develop more of after marriage, right? So in her situation, she has Moon conjunct Mars, Jupiter conjunct Mars, and Mars has the lowest degree here. Now, in her situation, to be fair, she probably, because she was in the circle of rich and famous. Also, I should mention this, that when I'm talking about wealthy spouse, etc., it's always to be taken by comparison to your situation, right? So if you're the woman who has this conjunction and, you have like Jupiter conjunct Mars and Jupiter is in a lower degree than Mars, it will tend to show you're going to marry a guy who makes more money than you do, right? So not generally wealthy in a universal sense, right? Like a multi-billionaire, but compared to your situation. So in her situation, because Jupiter is at a higher degree than Mars, it tends to show that after she gets married, her spouse will increase his finances, but not just his finances, because like I said, Jupiter doesn't just stand for money. It also stands for things like, higher education, a higher mind, benevolence, also humanitarianism, because Jupiter is about being generous, caring about others, wanting to enlighten others, wanting to spread knowledge and information. And I found this really interesting, especially in her case with Brad Pitt and all. And then also she has Moon conjunct Mars, and Moon is also at a higher degree, and Moon can show that the spouse can become increasingly more emotional after marriage, right? Because the moon tends to wax and wane. It can show moodiness. It can also show sensitivity, but also more of a nurturing energy as well. Which again, based on rumors about her relationship, especially in light of like some relatively recent pieces of information that appeared about their relationship and the whole abuse situation that led to the demise of their marriage. I'm talking about her marriage to Brad Pitt, because she was married before. So it's really interesting to take these things into account, because it seems to really match, because their marriage ended because, Brad Pitt became increasingly volatile and emotional and even abusive towards one of her kids. Actually, I think towards most of their kids, as far as I have read. I think one of her kids came out relatively recently, like a few months ago, and, said some really nasty things about Brad Pitt and about how he was abusive and stuff. In any case, I don't want to get into, like, gossipy situations, but it seems to match, like, just based on these aspects. Of course, it's also to be taken into account. It's also worth to take into account the fact that, they have a volatile synastry situation. I've actually done their analysis a while ago, so maybe I'm going to link that video in the description as well. I'm talking about, again, the relationship analysis between her and Brad Pitt. But what was really interesting is that she has Jupiter after Mars, which tends to show, again, like I said, an increase of wealth of her partners. And if you actually look, I mean, again, it's kind of difficult to tell, because Brad Pitt was probably well off even before, but I think it's safe to say that his wealth probably increased after they got married, because they bought a chateau together, didn't they, in France? So I don't know. And also the fact that Brad Pitt first of all, the fact that they both moved to a foreign country, that can also be Jupiter energy, because, and also Moon also represents love of travel, last but not least, because it's about, waxing and waning and mutability and fluidity and stuff. So Moon with Mars tends to show that the spouse becomes more in love with traveling after you get together, which again really matches her situation with Brad Pitt. Because, after they got together, I don't know how many of you remember, because it was a while ago, but I remember the gossips back in the day. And there was a lot of emphasis and a lot of talk on the fact that Brad Pitt suddenly became a globetrotter just like her, and that he was very much involved in the same humanitarian causes that she became involved with, etc., so on and so forth. All right, so it tends to match. A second example that I found was Salma Hayek, which is kind of an opposite example in the sense that she has the same conjunction between Mars, Jupiter, and she also has a conjunction to Venus. Here's the thing, the Venus is also potentially showing wealth in a woman's chart. So when you have like Mars with Venus conjunct, it can also potentially show that you might have a husband who is wealthy, but to a lesser extent than Jupiter, right? And especially if there is no other influence from Jupiter or other planets like Rahu or Mercury, maybe not that much. It can also show just the fact that you're going to have like maybe more sensuality in your life, a husband who suddenly becomes more comfort loving or something like that, right? But in her situation, she has Mars with Jupiter and Venus, right? She married a multi-billionaire, as far as I have read. And the guy was already very wealthy when she married him. And you can see this in her horoscope because she has Mars conjunct Jupiter, and Jupiter is at a lower degree than Mars. So, yeah. And then she also has the Venus, which can show that the husband's wealth again could further increase after marriage. As well as affection can increase, and the husband could become more affectionate, more romantic after marriage as well, which again kind of tends to match her situation. If you read some gossip about their relationship or some of the things that she has said about her spouse, it seems like a pretty traditional and quite romantic connection. Another example is Robert Kiyosaki, the famous author of Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He became like this really influential, I think, financial guru, I guess, in a way you can call him. Someone who talks of investments, and especially with respect to real estate and everything. And I've actually done like a little bit of research. I don't fully remember the full story, but he actually he became actually very wealthy after he got married, considerably after. And in fact, his book, now, of course, he may have also had some decent position even before that, but his wealth and his wife's wealth has really, really increased after they got married. So they got married at some point in the 80s, and their bestseller book, his bestseller book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, was written about a decade later, or reached the bestseller list about a decade later, right? A decade after he got married. So, and he has, if you look at his horoscope, you see that he has Venus conjunct Mercury in Aquarius. And again, we see that Mercury is at a higher degree than Venus, which tends to show, like I said, in a man's horoscope, that wealth increases after marriage. Right? Very strong indicator. Yet another example that I have found, the final one, is Keegan Peele, the actor behind Key and Peele, one of them. The famous Key and Peele, who, I just know them from their YouTube channel. I don't know if they had like TV shows or whatever, but they're very famous comedians, and they also have become very, very successful. And in fact, I think they retired now. They stopped doing videos, but they have been very successful in the past like 10 years or more. And as far as I have read, Keegan Peele has been married for a very long time. I think he's divorced now, or he's married for a second time, but he got married relatively young, I think in the 90s, right? So he definitely increased his wealth significantly after marriage. Now, unfortunately, his time of birth is not known, but it's not really relevant in this situation because Venus, he has a Venus-Rahu conjunction, and these planets are slow moving enough that, the time of birth is not relevant. It would not influence this conjunction. So he has the conjunction in Capricorn, and Venus is in a lower degree than Rahu. So he has the Venus-Rahu conjunction in Capricorn, Venus in a lower degree than Rahu. So like I said, this is another indicator in a man's horoscope, especially, that wealth increases a lot after marriage. Now, again, because his time of birth is not known, you can't really see more in-depth situations. Not that I have checked in-depth situations for the other examples, but what I'm trying to say is that, in his situation, I'm sure that his wealth increased a lot after marriage. So it would have been interesting to also check maybe connections between the houses of the horoscope, because he probably had a lot of like wealth yogas as well. Because he's still around. And yeah, these have been basically the main famous examples that I have considered, that I decided to show here. I have seen quite a few others, but I didn't think at the time to like write them down to track. But yeah, I have also seen this in the horoscopes of some people that I have done analysis for, synastry also. And yeah, it has happened where I definitely saw these placements checking out. So this has been what I wanted to share, and I thought that it would be interesting. I'm also curious to see if you have feedback to share. Maybe you have had similar experiences, or you know people who have similar experiences that might be, described by these configurations. I would be really curious. If you do, please share in the comments. And yes, once again, if you have liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe and click on the notifications bell if you want to see when I post a new video. Also, if you're interested in finding out more information about the membership section or about how to get a private consultation from me, check out the introductory part of the video because I will be adding timestamps. So thank you very much. And also last but not least, right, if you want to check out my tarot channel, I will also leave that in the video description as well as in the pinned comment. So if you're curious, go ahead and check it out. I would definitely appreciate it. Maybe subscribe as well. Thank you, and I hope to see you in my next video.